What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Scott DeLong with the CEO Podcast. I'm here with my partner Vince Moiso and special guest Yuko Tsuchida. So Yuko's been a friend for quite a while, actually maybe 6-7 years, probably 7 years ago now. I got into a forum that the intention from myself and another gentleman was to get more women in EO and therefore invite him into the forum. And Yuko was part of that initial forum group, Forum Ignite actually. And then,
nice.
As I trailed away from EO and that forum, Vince jumps in and he was in forum with you as well. Mm-hmm. But you and I have another connection as well, though. So we both worked for a company, both owned our own businesses. But one of our clients, we had a client that we were consulting for independently, brought us both in. Me as the interim president and you as the interim CFO.
Right. Operations CFO.
He wanted it to be just plain CFO, but I think it ended up being interim because you're an entrepreneur and not someone that wants to work with somebody. Mm-hmm. So Yuko is an expert in taxation in particular, but she did a really good job with this company and as a CFO. So that's why we wanted to have you here, first of all, because we just love hanging out with you.
Thank you.
First of all. And second, I think some of your expertise might lend itself to the audience.
Cool.
So
and what inspired me about it, with your accounting and finance background too, if I can lead in with a quick anecdote, is I just experienced that I didn't truly understand business at the level that I understand it today until I truly learned finance. Mm-hmm. Right. When I got my MBA, which was focused in finance, I learned how to actually read financial statements and understand reports and understand the data and the information that was given. And I fell in love with numbers. When I was in high school, hated math, got through calculus, tested out of it for college because I was an international relations major. So I never took a lick of math in college. I hated it. Then in my MBA program, I had to take calculus again to get through econ and accounting and, all the statistics and all the courses that were required. And I fell in love with it again. Not again, but I actually fell in love with it because I had business experience and I was an entrepreneur at that point. And I realized, wow, I was doing my business a total disservice by not understanding that financial component at the level that I do today. And I thought, what a great conversation to have. The importance of that for an entrepreneur, for anybody that's running a business, in fact, anybody that's in business. If you're at the executive level, if you're in a key role in that business, if you don't have a good understanding of finance, you need to figure that out tomorrow, I think. So with your accounting background, your own, international experience, what do you think of that bold statement?
I think that's true. But thank you, number one, for having me, because Ignite was one of the life-changing moment. Without that,
My Ignite or his Ignite?
Both. Both, because
mine, of course.
Okay. I was sharing his experience last night was one of the forum new forum in Ignite. I was that was a blessing and curse. I got introduced to Ignite because I was gonna make so much money next year, but I decided to my life and my happiness was so much more important than money. And I exited out from the business and I had an amazing journey since then. So thank you for helping me to get there.
I want to go along with that because I'm that. So when I was younger, it was drive, business, doing all that.
Yeah.
And as I got older, and actually the reason I transitioned away from EO, because I just wasn't interested in that conversation anymore at that time. I wanted to go be happy instead of working 16 hours a day. And
it's funny that
it's interesting that you're finding this so young.
Can I tell you this?
Yeah.
So I literally had somebody ask me today, I listened to your podcast. I didn't know that Scott wasn't in EO. Why isn't
really?
he in? So literally a listener asked me, why isn't Scott still in EO?
I tell people I aged out. You keep reminding me how old I am. That's a young man's game, that whole EO thing.
There's no age limit to EO.
no.
That's YPO you're thinking of.
No, there's not an age limit. But when I exited is because I was bored with the conversation at that time. So I traveled a lot. There was an 18-month period that I was down in Costa Rica, I think 90 days. Because I wanted to go see things and go do things and all of that. And that's not consistent with EO, and you have to be there and all that. So that's one of the reasons, certainly. But I want to hear, so now we're talking about lifestyle and travel. You're from Japan.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up here.
Nope.
You moved here college?
College, undergrad. So
And-
on my 19th birthday, I came here. Here meaning Oklahoma.
Yeah, here is not Oklahoma, but Oklahoma, okay. University of Oklahoma?
No, small college called Northeastern State University in
okay.
Tahlequah, Oklahoma.
How did you choose that?
So my parents are cheap to begin with. So like they were like, okay,
Thrifty.
thrifty.
Okay.
So they go like, I will hire like somebody for like, $500 to like select the college.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, like, and my parents are like, oh, it's going to be all same. So this is your budget. Tell them like what you're looking for. And this advisor goes, I have amazing place for you. So they gave me Nebraska, option of Nebraska and Oklahoma. And my brother was going to University of Nebraska, so I didn't want to be with him. So I chose Oklahoma. And it was culture shock.
So
but
from
it was
Japan
amazing.
to the middle of nowhere is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to call my mom.
Wait, let's just get this
What?
straight. It's culture shock from California to Oklahoma.
Yes. Japan to
We're
California is enough
we're
of a
talking
shock.
Japan to Oklahoma. Come
Yeah.
on now.
Yeah.
We skipped everything in between.
How'd you like the mountains out there?
Lovely.
Sorry.
The biggest hill.
We digress.
Yeah.
So keep going with your story. So you got to Oklahoma, then what?
And then I already knew I wanted to be accountant, so I was accounting major, and I had amazing life for years. It was countryside, like I grew up in like second biggest city in Japan, right? So it was really fun, like looking at cows and other thing in a
Cows
field.
cows and cowboys.
yeah, pretty much
Something like that.
something like that.
All right.
Yeah, and graduated and came out to California for my job.
What kind? Where did you come working for someone? Did you start your own business? What's your transition?
So I got job with Big Four accounting firm KPMG
Okay.
in downtown LA. So that took me to California.
Okay, wonderful transition there from working for a Big Four accounting firm to running your own shop. What did that look like for you?
So second year or third year, like in KPMG, like my mother had cancer. So I needed more flexibility than like what.
And
Big
they're still in
Four-
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to go back and forth like every single month and like, support my mother and like, Big Four was like, it's just a big firm. Like they couldn't give me that flexibility. So at the time I was friend with like one of the gentlemen who was a partner at KPMG, and he was about to go thinking about like starting his firm. So I joined him to open CPA firm together.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that turned out well? Did it
Very
end,
well.
Did it end well?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know like the
Partnerships-
definition of like the but
Partnerships are hard.
Yeah.
They're hard. I tell people all the time, having a partner is like having a spouse without the physical relations to make up the fights. We have
definitely.
just as many fights with a partner as you do with a spouse, right? About trivial things sometimes,
Yeah.
and sometimes big things, but you don't have that makeup thing that you can do with
It's a
that
super
partner.
challenging dynamic.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Without question. It's different. It's different than being on your own and making your own decisions, joint decisions, figuring out each other's role and responsibility. It's challenging.
So I want to go back to something Vince said earlier, that you really need to understand your numbers and all of that. And I know accounting well enough, and I know taxation well enough. But a gentleman that we worked for, you and I worked for, when he was beating himself up for not knowing his numbers, right?
right.
And I said, I don't even want you wasting your time doing that. Right? I want you doing what you do, which is engagement, smiling with the customers, getting out in front, and trust the people behind you. And if you can trust the people behind you to do that work for you, and just guide you to do what you're going to do. I want you to be a founder. I don't want you to be a CEO, right? So there are times that I would argue that point, because had this guy in particular spent time trying to understand financial statements, he would have lost his mojo. He would have completely lost it. And he had people to do that for him. So you can see that happen, especially entrepreneurial founder types, right?
Yeah.
If you have somebody that you can trust and really trust them, you can get away with it. Now, I don't recommend it for everybody. I
It's
do
a
think you need to know
pretty
numbers.
strong argument, though. I don't know. I think in a previous podcast with the previous guest, we had him say these words, which I thought were very powerful. Which is like, you asked the question of, hey, what would you contribute so much of your success and your ability to run multiple businesses? And his answer was very clear. It was like, hey, I'm going to surround myself with people that are better than me, that can make decisions. I'm going to empower them to make decisions, right? So I think along those lines, it's a little bit of what you're saying. And I do agree with that conceptually. Where I disagree is on the financial side. Is like, I think just about anybody in business is going to say the CEO better know his numbers. And at a bare minimum, you should be able to read financial statements. And when you're in a room full of people, you should be able to spit off top line, understand what the expense ratios are, understand, what your gross margin is, and ultimately what's the EBITDA of the business, right? So what's the income of the business? And so if at a bare minimum, if a CEO, the person, I don't care if you're a founder or not, in my opinion, if you don't know that, you better know it tomorrow, because I think you're missing something. And the other thing, the reason I would say that, I feel so strongly about that, is it's a check and balance. And especially if it's your business, if you can't check and balance your own business, holy cow, like then you don't know what's going on in your business.
Now,
in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just telling you, with this personality, it would have moved the company backwards.
I see. Yeah.
It would have moved the company backwards, especially when you have an expert sitting there that you trust, and then someone else that can help you interpret. Yeah. Right. And he had that. He had both of that with him. Yeah. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about this lifestyle more. I'm going to go further. So you spend a lot of time traveling.
I do. Yeah.
I saw some
just
pictures
came
of
back
you
from Cabo. Oh no, Cabo, Cancun.
From Cancun.
Yeah.
And before that, I saw you in Costa Rica, and you go back to
Mallorca and South Africa, and lived in Spain.
And run a business.
Yeah.
Good for you. How do you do that? There's a lot of people out there that are going to want to hear.
Empower other people to do what they are good at.
Good.
Yeah. Really, like, it really changed my mind whenever, like, like probably like earlier, couple years ago, like, I read the book called like Who Not How. Really changed my like thought process. Like, I am good at what I do.
What's the book? Say the book again.
Who Not How by David Sullivan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that really changed my mind to like, how to empower others to like do what they're really good at instead of me being like solopreneur, so that I can have the lifestyle.
That doesn't sound like an accountant's philosophy to me. They're not who, not how kind of people, are they?
No.
Typically, no.
It was really hard for me to transition, though.
Sure. I get that. All right. So empowering these people to do the work, but you have to check up on them, right?
Of course.
How are you doing that remotely?
We have like daily checkup, and like,
so even when you're traveling, you're calling in.
Just like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Like in the morning, I will check in, but I have like great like manager and director level people now. Like, I don't have to check in as much anymore. But like, a couple years ago, I had to.
Okay. I want to move to your business philosophy now. Your name of your company. Mm-hmm. What does it mean, and what do you believe?
Okay, so Hito means people in Japanese. And like, this name, like, I'm not creative, so this name came from like, I wanted to contribute this company to like people who impacted my life, like you guys. Yeah. And then like, I always wanted my employees to remember it's a people business, not accounting business. Accounting is just a story we can tell or a tool to use. But so what I do is like, we help company like save taxes, right? And why we are passionate and like I love what I do is that the tax like you save, our clients are always like giving back to like their employees through like training or like reinvesting in their company. Yeah. And in turn, like they're really impacting.
So is that something
communities.
you encourage with your customers, or do you find customers that already believe that?
Latter.
The latter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have like a lot of like selection process on the clients, and we ask like different questions to kind of screen out like who we want to work with.
Wow, good for you.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being able to run a business and do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that option.
Yeah.
And I was afraid like first, and like I was not making
Sure.
like we made a lot of mistakes, but last year 6 months to like 9 months, and we've been like really like focusing on that, and our business like doubled.
Interesting.
So philanthropy is at the heart of that, and I if I understood what you were saying is that internal philanthropy, giving back to the employees, is equally as important as any external giving.
Yeah, I think so.
And are you looking, so when you're qualifying these clients, is there a certain type of external philanthropy that you're looking for? Or when we talk internally too, is when you say give back to employees, I'm big on the word development. I heard you use the word develop, not train. So can you expand on, the things, because I think where our listeners can really take some value is hearing and understanding the things that you mean when you talk about developing employees, and then the things that you mean when you start talking about benefiting employees. In other words, like, what does internal philanthropy look like? And then ultimately too is when I ask the question too, because it's twofold questions. When we talk about external philanthropy, it's just giving to a cause. You're finding maybe an organization or something that you're super passionate about, and you want to give to that organization. So like where's the balance there? Employees versus that external giving.
So whenever I'm working with like clients, like I'm looking at internally, like is the business owner like treating them right? Are they really like passionate about their employees? Like including like, are they training them? Are they like try to make them like employee like better every single day? And are they hiring right people? And like those stuff matter to us, because we want to like within my company we always talk about, we want to like it's people business, right?
Yeah.
And we really believe in aligning ourselves and having that similar life goal. And my company, like for example, like we talk about what is your personal goal, where do you want to go, family, and like spiritually and financially, and like try to
During
understand
interviewing
that.
processes
Yeah.
in California?
And every single I know it's wrong.
It's not wrong, it's just illegal. There's a difference
But
between it is right
Yes.
and
but-
maybe on a line somewhere.
Yeah, but I have that conversation annually in the annual meeting we have in the company. We talk about that. People want to present that, so it might be illegal, it might be like all that stuff, but I believe in like treating my people right, and like aligning myself.
See, I actually like it a lot, and the reason is because if people know you care, you're not getting sued by those same people about little ticky-tack laws, right? And what you're doing is by talking about their lives, not just get your spreadsheet down, right? That you're showing care for those people. Those people don't sue.
No.
Yeah.
And they're
great.
super open. Like recently, we finished like 360 review for myself. They go, you need to take more vacation and you need to find love.
You've heard that before.
That was the feedback you got?
Yeah.
Nice. My feedback lately has been, you need to talk less and listen more.
There you go. And love.
Love, I got plenty of love.
All right.
My heart's open for that, for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing lately, because I've been seeing you on the webinars that you've been putting out, which are tax saving strategies, looking for the tax credits that are available and making sure that things don't get away, right? Which is, now that we're in the end of the year, kind of important to figure that out. And is that when clients engage you, is towards the end of the year? Or I'm more interested in what happens at the beginning of a year, or what should happen at the beginning of a year.
So my clients typically like engage us, and like we have quarterly meeting. Because what we do is like, the tax credit like is three things: looking back opportunity and current opportunity and looking forward, right? So a lot of like, states are moving towards like, especially like looking forward opportunity, meaning you have to go negotiate or you have to get pre-approval before you make an investment. So like year end, beginning of the year planning is super important, but same time, like, understanding their business growth, like looking at 3 to 5 years, and are they growing in certain states, or are they bringing job back into America, like all that stuff, right? And then identifying those opportunity to go talk to like states or any local jurisdiction so that you can maximize opportunities. So my clients are always engaging us, like, when they have like growth plan changes or business plan changes.
So I like the quarterly reviews, and it's because while we might have a 3 to 5 year plan that's sitting out there, things happen. And I can't, cash flow in particular, let's just talk about cash flow, because tax strategies take cash flow, right? In order to execute on these things, you need to have the cash to be able to do most of those things. And it may not happen in this 90 days. Like, we're in the middle of something, we're growing, we're pushing all our money back into the business, and then you need to be aware of that so that you can help them plan the next quarter or the quarter after that as well, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good. And do all of your clients do quarterly meetings with you?
Not all of them, like people like who are like really growing, like that's when we have like, quarterly meeting, but at minimum we have like 6-month checkup to kind of like see like where the business is.
Okay. So we were talking earlier about a financial department within a company, right? And the different roles that these people play. And you'd made a statement that talked about, hey, just don't rely on one person just to do your taxes. Talk a little bit about that, a fully developed financial organization, right? What do you need? What does a growing entrepreneur need?
So I always, like, all my friend doesn't know what I do still. And I always say, like, analogy is like, doctors, right? Whenever like you are sick or anything like that, you might go to like family doctor, but if you have pain in the chest, like, they will refer you to specialists. If you have like, freckle in your like, face, like they will say like, go to dermatologist. Same thing for like CPAs or like financial, like, profession. Okay. Because some people might be like CFOs and accountants and controller, bookkeeper and tax preparer, right? And like everybody's like, have different very different like, skill set. Yeah. So you really need to have like, multiple people to like.
And a smaller company can outsource those things from time to time too, right? As long as there's check-ins and all of that, so you don't need to have this gigantic staff. No. So what do you think a CFO should be doing in a growing company? What's the CFO's role?
Depends on the stage of company. Okay. So if you're looking at like M&A, you need to find like somebody like, who are good at like, navigating those stuff. And whenever you're like high growth mode, like you need to find CFO who had experience in like raising fund, talking to investors. And if you're digressing, like you want to like turn around CFO who can help like negotiate like, bank loan with like banks or investor to like, fund more operation.
So if you've got a tactical CEO that's going out, I got the CFO who's raising money. That's the person I need because we're going to be doing this fast growth. Does that person also manage the financial department, and are they decent managers? Are they good at that job? Depends. Yeah, because I could see a CFO putting that raise capital hat on and leaving everyone just to go do their own thing. Right. But people still need to be led. Some people still need to be managed as well, but they need to be led by somebody at that as well. So
I've had the experience that there's a lot of CFOs that I've run into, and I think they vary tremendously, and it depends on the skill set of that CFO in a lot of different categories. I've been in situations where the CFO absolutely was not a CFO. I have no idea how they ended up as a CFO. And I've seen CFOs that, in my opinion, should be CEOs, right? Like, it's just this broad spectrum, because I think it's okay. In my experience with multiple businesses, I believe CFO is literally the one title that has been, in my opinion, bastardized in a lot of ways. It's been misused. It's very misused for a skill set. And so I think of I immediately think of, well, one, I want to step back for a second because I want to say this. It really, the direct answer to your question, in my opinion, is it depends on the size of the business.
Okay.
So in the very small business or a startup that may not be able to afford a CFO or even afford a controller, you might be lucky to have an accounting manager, right? That is like, at this point, you're just like, hey, I'm happy to just have somebody that can handle my bookkeeping right now, and maybe spit out, spit out a few reports out of QuickBooks for me, right? Like, it understands QuickBooks enough that I can get the data, right? And then you kind of grow into that, and that's why I'm so adamant about the CEO, the entrepreneur, the owner or founder or the partners of the business really having a handle on, being able to understand financials, because I do feel like some of that's organic, where, when you're running a business and you don't have the luxury, if you're not big enough to have those positions in place, you better know enough to be dangerous, right? But then, as you scale, as you get bigger, when is the time? I mean, I think it's a looming question. When is it appropriate to have a CFO versus just having a controller in place? And then I think the question I get often, believe it or not, is what the heck is the difference between a CFO and a controller? Because I have met controllers that, in my opinion, should be CFOs, and they're not. And I've met controllers that don't want to be CFOs.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough question to answer.
Well, that's why you're here. we're not gonna throw you the easy ones.
But what I can tell you is, like, we work with like a lot of fractional CFO firm, and like some of like my friend has multiple like expertise within their company, so they can switch in back. Like, if you're like 1 to 5 million, you need this type of CFO. If you're in a fundraising mode, like, talk to PLO, like, talk to Dave. So I think like having that team and like, people who are very honest to you and say, hey, that's not like my expertise, and like you need to talk to somebody. And that's what I try to do, because everybody's think like, if you have a CPA, like, you're a jack of all trade. It's not true.
Yeah, it's so great that you're saying that, because what I'm hearing is, Scott, is being genuine and authentic is a good thing, and regardless of the position. And I think there are people that are in finance that misuse or even abuse their expertise or skill set within finance. So I would argue that I've met people that masquerade as CFOs that don't really have the skill set to be.
So my theory on this, and I could be wrong, but I think if you have the C in front of your title, you need to be a leader. I do. Now, I get the fractional CFO not being a leader because they're in there to do tasks. And I get giving somebody that needs to go fundraising to getting a title of CFO so they can get the appointments that they need to get.
I agree
as
with both
well.
of those things. Yep.
However, you put chief in front of your name, you're a leader. You need to be developed in that leadership role. And I would argue that most people from the accounting track aren't in the people development, like people first vision. Typically, their numbers, they're all of that. So that's a hard position. It's a hard position that I'm asking for. But I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't promote a controller or anybody along the lines to a CFO or a vice president of finance to CFO unless they have those leadership skills too.
I totally agree with you, and I respect the controllers that don't want to be CFO because they understand that they're not that, right? And they understand that that's what comes with being a CFO. I completely agree with what you're saying. Can I go back as we start to wrap things up for this conversation, because I feel like we could go a very long time with this, and I'm equally passionate around all of this. A lot of things. You had me at people, right? Like you had me at people focus. And when you talked about internal, that's why I was asking to distinguish. And it sounds like what I heard from you is really this, your business and the customers that you want to align your business with have a internal people focus and are really focused on their employees. I want to take that one step further, because I want you to give some advice to listeners that they can put into practice tomorrow. It's like, what what are these businesses doing for their people beyond just the development and empowerment? We've talked a lot about those type of things. I'm talking about benefits. I'm talking about, what about compensation? What about health benefits? What about retirement planning? What about all these things that are important, that not just, that okay, great, developing people. I'm a huge believer in developing people. So I heard you say that, and I get that part. But what about all those other components that are so important to somebody thinking about a business that they're going to work for? And what advice do you have for, any entrepreneurs and others that are in business that they need to be doing or should be doing for their people today?
Yeah, I think like I'm a big believer, and this comes from like my former business partner too, and like treating like our people like really well. Like we are a small CPA firm. I think our comp level is like very comparable to Big Four accounting firm.
Wow.
And just like giving them like fair living wages, and also providing them like benefits and like health cares and retirement, and also like not just giving them like those stuff, but like educating them how to like save up for your family and your future. Because
there's a struggle with that now, though, because with the younger workforce that's kind of controlling things right now. It's all pay and time off and not the benefits, because they can stay on mom and dad's insurance till they're 27 now, right? So they're not even thinking about retirement, which young people never did, nor are they thinking about health care as much and some of those benefits. And I agree with you. Those things are so important, and people don't get it because they don't know. The first time someone has to pay for insurance on their own, oh my gosh, that they're ripping us off. They're ripping all us off, right? It's your company's been paying for it in the past. So how do you convince the younger people that these are benefits that are important or should be important to them? Because they want to know, if I get an extra $12, so I can go get another beer. I mean, that's what they're, right? That's what the young people are looking at, because the other things are covered for them. Mom and dad got it.
yeah,
That's a struggle right now.
I think like my people are a little bit different because they're like accountants, and like they're very money conscious.
Okay.
So I like a lot of time like younger people come into workforce, and even intern, like they're asking us like what should I do for retirement?
Yeah.
And these are 22-year-old, right?
Good.
So
Good.
we are educating them like how to like save it, and like when to
Great
save
that
it
they're
and how
asking those
much.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. So we're out of time for this one. We're going to have you come back and talk more about this thing, because I think this is an important thing. In fact, you and I ought to be talking about that, and how to get the young people engaged in what's important in life.
Well, you started to hit it. It's just a quick mention, which is it's lifestyle. So now I think lifestyle is becoming equally important. I think people are more in tune. And I don't love the words work-life balance, because it feel then you're like cutting it off, and there's two separate things. I think people are more in tune that there's an integration. They understand that they're going to spend equally as much time at work as they are not at work. And so you start to realize like, oh, I have to choose a place that I'm going to be that matches my lifestyle. That's going to give me the cash flow that matches my lifestyle. It's going to give me the time off, like you said, that matches my lifestyle. That if retirement is important, that's going to be there for me.
And fulfill my purpose.
Fulfill a purpose, a passion, or all these things. Yeah. So that's why I like the term lifestyle, because I think more and more we're in tune with integrating, work and life as one. And we understand, okay, great, it just has to match my lifestyle, right? So I think
we'll talk more about that.
I think that's where we can.
So Yuko brought us a beer from one of her clients today. So you want to talk a little bit about the client and the beer?
This is an amazing brewery called Monkish in Torrance, California, and they are opening up their location in Anaheim as well.
Nice.
And they do not make any same beer ever again. So we do a tax credit for them, R&D tax credit, to minimize their taxes.
Nice.
So they're always rotating their and then coming up with new names for their whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, give somebody. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now, just before we close this up. Is from a tax perspective, since you are a tax expert, what's one thing that people don't know about or aren't doing that you're like, hey, if you qualify for this, you should be doing this?
So in 2020, 2021, like, I think if you had employee and was affected by COVID, you need to talk to your CPA about employee retention tax credits.
Employee retention tax credit.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you, Yuko. From the bottom of my heart, I love seeing you and love having you here. And
Thank you.
It was great to have you on the podcast. I miss you in Forum. I think from our talk at the beginning, I believe Scott DeLong should think about stepping back into EO. He's not too old. I don't believe he's traveling too much at this point. So maybe EO still has something left to offer you.
Yeah,
Just
maybe.
saying, man. Just saying, man. But
Well, it could be because the last time I saw Yuko, we were both on vacation at the same time in the
There
same
you
month. So,
well,
Maybe
I think and maybe even Forum Ignite might in the near future have some spots for you guys. Who knows?
That's awesome.
So,
all right.
So, hey, you've been listening to the CEO podcast, and we appreciate, as always, any feedback that you have to offer us. So, go on theceopodcast.net, and you can get in touch with Scott or I. Please, we want your feedback. We want to know what you guys want to hear more of. And you can check us out on YouTube, all the usual suspects on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. And until next time.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with Yuko, get in touch with us, and we'll put you in touch with him.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.